Are you a professional who wants to become a more effective leader? Then get ready for daily tips from the coach with the experience and inspiration to help you succeed in any leadership situation. You're listening to the Meeting Leadership Podcast with Gordon Shepherd.
Welcome to another episode of the Meeting Leadership Podcast. My name is Gordon Shepherd, and I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your valuable day to spend time here, because you realize that by coming to this podcast, you're going to get some tips, you're going to get some practical information, you're going to get the inspiration that you need to become a better leader and learn how to run outstanding meetings. Thank you so much for being here. And today you're going to hear another one of our inspiring leadership stories. These are stories that the guests who have come on the show to share their expertise, they share what inspires them. So we can hear from their tone, from their enthusiasm, and from their experience, their take on an inspiring story, and you can take things immediately from that right into your leadership skill development. And thankfully, today, we've got Kathy Archer back on the show. Now, many of you have heard her in episode 50 and 61 of the podcast, and she really helped us to understand how to be at our best when we were going into a meeting. Well, today she's going to share a story about a leader who was working 80 hours a week, but by working with Kathy, she was able to get that down to sort of a normal schedule and then also be really authentic in the way that she sort of applied her leadership ability. It's a really inspiring story. Kathy is really excited to tell it, and I'm not going to hold you back any longer. Here's the inspiring leadership story from Kathy Archer. Kathy, it's great to have you back here on the podcast. For anybody that was lucky enough, they caught you in episode 50 and episode 61. We learned so much about what leaders can do to make their meetings better. And now, as part of our Inspiring Leadership Stories kind of series, we're going to get a chance to learn a little bit about what inspires you. Now, before we do that, though, for anybody that's catching you for the first time, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Gord. I am Kathy Archer, a leadership development coach, and my work is primarily helping women leaders in Canada's nonprofits get the heck out of survival mode and move to that place of thriving in both their leadership and life. And where many women are stuck is in that sense of overwhelm, in that place of imposter syndrome. And so together, we help you restore that lost confidence, get you back on track, and doing the work that you really were meant to do.
Well, and this ultimately, for me, from what it sounds like, would be an overall economic driver, like incrementally with every female leader that you are influencing. This way, it will impact them personally and in their organization, and the results for that organization, I know, will be significantly stronger. So it's great to have you back. And the basic question here for this series is, what inspires you?
What inspires me? Primarily what inspires me is growth in other individuals. I light up when I see other people learn or develop some new skill or find a way to use their authentic sort of personal ideas better. You know, when we put on masks and we put on facades, and that's why we end up in imposter syndrome sometimes, it's because we're trying to be somebody we're not. And what I really love is when people can shed some of those and really let their own light shine. And that's primarily through personal development and growth. And that's just a learning process for them. So that's what lights me up.
Well, and maybe what you could do is, without saying full names and bank accounts, but maybe you can just share the first name and kind of tell me one of those stories that has inspired you.
Absolutely. Well, if I can tell you about Jessica. So Jessica was in an organization and she was struggling big time. And she was the ED of a nonprofit, staff of about 250, had moved into the position and just found herself floundering. And there was a couple reasons primarily she was floundering. One, she was trying to step into the old ED's shoes, who was a male and had a whole different background than her. And the second part was she was trying to work 80 hours a week. So the combination just wasn't working well. And over time, as she started to figure out how she wanted to lead, who she was authentically, and put some of that work-life balance stuff back into practice, over time, and none of this happens in a blink of an eye, but over time, she really started to engage her team differently. She started to find that she regained that sense of passion in her job, and she really started to enjoy life more. So that's it in a nutshell.
Well, and people get the title, right? I was this, and now I'm the executive director. I'm the CEO, and they think that's, they've sort of arrived. But obviously what you're describing in your inspiring story is there's a lot more to it than that.
Absolutely. We can't just jump into it with the title without the growth and development that goes along with it. You don't end up with a 4-year Bachelor of Arts without the 4 years that got to that point. And so we have to work on that part.
And the piece that you put in there too, and I see this a lot in my own work with leaders as well, is the overwhelm, right? They're in there, they're sort of in that reactive mode. They're not doing kind of the actual things they need to be doing. They're doing all kinds of different things. And really interesting that you brought up this thing of, I'm going to try to do it the way the other leader did it and not being authentic to herself in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we try to lead. We try to sort of step into other people's shoes. We try to lead by the way we should lead, or the internet tells us to lead, or the last leadership book taught us to lead. If we're lucky enough to have any leadership training, let's be honest, many people walk into leadership without any leadership training at all. They moved up from the front line and don't even know really what leadership is or how leadership's different than management. So they're floundering. And so they're trying to sort of do what they think they should do, rather than when they tune into their own inner guidance and learn how they really truly do it. And when they do that, it changes things dramatically for them.
Well, and that would have a huge impact on any organization that leaders who kind of get this would be leading. Kathy, thank you so much for sharing your inspiration and kind of really breaking it down so that leaders can, I think, get out of this to be authentic to their own leadership style and really have the confidence to carry that out.
You're very welcome, Gord.
I really hope that after listening to that episode, you take the main theme to heart, and that is to make sure you have a whole life approach to your leadership, make sure you get those hours in check, and really be authentic when it comes to finding your style and the way that you lead your teams. And if anybody would like to get in touch with Kathy directly, just visit silverrivercoaching.com. And of course, I mentioned earlier that she's been on a couple of other episodes. Here's the information for those. Kathy was on episode 50 of the Meeting Leadership podcast, and it was called How to Control Your Emotions in a Meeting. And you can get that episode by going to meetingleadershipinc.com/50. And Kathy was also on episode 61, and it was called How Leaders Can Remain Calm During Heated Meetings. And you can listen to that episode by visiting meetingleadershipinc.com/61. And I also want to let you know that this episode of the Meeting Leadership Podcast is brought to you by the Meeting Leadership Academy. Now, this is a place that I am just so proud of because there I get to offer great live training and online training options that will help you grow your leadership skills and help you also learn how to run outstanding meetings. And if you'd like to learn more about that, then visit meetingleadershipinc.com/academy. And as always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Meeting Leadership Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Meeting Leadership Podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more strategies to help you become an outstanding leader. And don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you fresh content every day. We'll see you tomorrow, right here on the Meeting Leadership Podcast.
I'm on top of the world, now I'm